It's a valid question. In most of my videos, you see an adult male bearded dragon in a 3-foot enclosure. Why do I have this setup and why is it so boring? That's what I'm talking about today. First off, if you don't know who Stan is, I'll link a playlist in the pinned comment just called Stan. It's every video Stan is in. Stan is one of the 500 animals that's been given to us, little subtle flex, and it's extremely rare that I actually keep one. He was dropped off to us 2 years ago at a Repticon actually, and he was 10 years old when I got him. He was previously living on bearded dragon pellets, which I don't know if anyone uses those, on a calcium sand in about a 40-gallon enclosure. He made it. The answer to the question is pretty simple. I've been changing up his enclosure over the past 2 years, and I've kind of refined this to be perfect for him. There is a standard for reptile care. Each animal has standards of husbandry, but the standard does not apply to every animal. And I definitely don't think there is a 100% chance you should be doing everything that you're told for an animal. First of all, because everyone's going to tell you something different, no matter what animal, no matter who you talk to. But if someone got a bearded dragon, I would not tell them to set it up in a small enclosure with one hide, 2 little basking spots, and a teeny tiny water bowl. It's a 36 by 18 by about 16-inch high enclosure. So it's like a 40-gallon with the top chopped off. I don't actually know where I got this enclosure. It was just given to us by someone. I cleaned it up and I threw some tiles on the bottom. They're not real tile, it's just plastic. It's laminate sticky tiles from Home Depot. On the right side, I've just got this completely generic cave sort of thing. It's got a hole in the side and a climbable area. It's one of the only things I found that he's able to climb because, as you probably know, he has metabolic bone disease, which is where an animal's skeleton does not form properly. In his case, this was because of diet and because he likely did not have UVB light. And the nice thing about it is it's just rough enough and just not too steep enough to where he can actually climb all the way to the top if he so desires. Then in the center, there's this teeny tiny water bowl. I've used like 10 different bowls for him. Usually I like to give beardies bowls that are big enough for them to completely soak in if they desire. It lets them pass stool easier. They can clean themselves off. They can cool down if it happens to be too hot. Stan, however, does not have access to this anymore because he had trouble getting out of it, if he could even get in. More recently, I was using a larger bowl that could hold more water because this one dries out within like 2 days just because it's so shallow. However, he was looking a little dehydrated one day and I decided to actually put him in the water and he drank the entire bowl. And that's when I realized he actually couldn't reach the bowl despite it only being about half an inch taller than that one, maybe an inch taller. So he's now got this super shallow bowl. He can't fit in it. He can just barely reach his head over and actually drink water. He can move surprisingly well, but I try to keep it limited because when he walks, he's mostly, it's like an army crawl. He's not really on his feet, he's more so on his legs, and I don't know, but I assume this is probably not very comfortable and probably more painful to move around a lot, and he doesn't move much at all. So what I want to do is keep everything very close together so he can bask on the cool side, bask on the hot side, and reach his water without taking more than like walking a foot or so that's all he has to do. And even then, he still doesn't really move. I've started keeping track of how often he stays in the exact same spot. And on this side, just recently, like literally until today filming this video, he didn't move for about 6 days, literally just in the same spot. Of course, I'm not in here all the time. He'll oftentimes just find a spot and settle there for up to 2 or 3 weeks without even really moving, other than when I actually throw food in. I don't give him a bowl with food. He really doesn't react to a bowl with food. You have to put it right in front of him. And he does go in the cave occasionally, but it'll be rare. It'll be like every few months he'll sleep like one day in the cave, so why not? Doesn't hurt to give it to him. He's then got a screen top, and on the left side he's got a UVB tube, and then on the right side, I don't know where this came from. I think someone gave it to us as well. I've got a second UVB, actually. It's just one of the curly lights in there. And then I guess it's the halogen bulbs. Originally I had a ceramic heat emitter on them, which are those ceramic bulbs. They don't let off light. They have that coil sort of look to them. And he tended to avoid it. I think it was 100 watts, but it just, even though it was very high up, you could see it in the old videos, it was on that side. He would just always avoid it. I'd have to kind of put him there and then he'd leave it pretty soon. So this one lets off a red light. So it kind of looks like a red light bulb, but it's got an orange hue to it. And it seems like just the right temperature that he enjoys. And that's it. That's a full tour of his enclosure. However, there are other examples where I definitely do not think you should follow the standard for husbandry. With Stan, he because he was on pellets and kind of a special case, it took me weeks to get him to eat literally anything. I had to end up going and buy pellets, which he ended up barely even eating, and I tried every fruit and vegetable and insect we had, and I eventually went down to the line of tomatoes. Tomatoes are a lot more acidic, they can give them kind of upset tummies, and it's not something that should be... A lot of people say you should never give them to reptiles, but I was like, well, we have this tomato, let's see if Stan will eat it. Instantly, he ate it, of course, it's the one thing he would eat. So I had to use tomatoes to get him onto other foods. Now he's not picky at all, and I still throw in the occasional tomato just because he really loves them for some reason. I don't know. As I've said in the past, I see it as like a little alcoholic beverage to throw in there. Not super healthy, but it satisfies the old man. Other examples are with other animals. Say other bearded dragons I get in that have extremely stuck shed. And when I say extremely, I mean you've got multiple layers of shed packed on top of each other. When people see me ripping this shed off in videos, they're like, wait, I thought you weren't supposed to ever pull shed off of bearded dragons. And that's true. Normally you shouldn't have to help an animal, especially a bearded dragon, because they shed in patches instead of shedding all at once like a snake, meaning that if you pull it off too soon, it can actually rip their skin because it hasn't fully separated. However, if you end up getting an animal, maybe from a poor seller or from a different person or something, and you see stuck shed or just shed that hasn't come off, if it doesn't come off for weeks after that, I would say you should definitely go ahead and take it off yourself. You can give them a soak and you can do it carefully. You never want to hurt an animal. I have been prescribed painkillers for reptiles before. It was actually leopard geckos. The vet prescribed me painkillers because they were taking another more painful medication. So you gave them a painkiller by injection first and then the other medication because it stung more. With beardies, and with stuck shed in general, painkillers aren't really something I hear of being used. So it's almost literally like ripping a band-aid off. However, if you do end up tearing the skin, you have to be a lot more careful. You have to do a lot of different things. You got to make sure the enclosure is impeccably sterile because you don't want any infections. You don't want any bacteria entering their body or whatever. So you definitely got to be careful there. Other examples are also related to if your animal has a deformity that is unlike other animals of their species. Like for example, box turtles. There was one that came in with a very flat shell. It was to where if he ended up flipping over, he actually would get stuck. Most box turtles, they can flip in the wild and they can stick their head out and flip themselves back, no problem, because of that shape. But this box turtle was almost literally a box. It was a lot more flat. So I tested this to be sure. I put him on his back and no matter how much he tried, he could not flip himself back over. He's since been rehomed and he was an example where you had to make sure there was nothing he could climb. With snakes, there's a ball python who had a very deformed spine that came in, and this is normally going to be a birth defect, and so this one had just trouble moving around, and if I had kept that one, I would have done a similar setup to Stan, just in ball python form. Everything's close together, shallow water bowl, easy access hides, not much space to explore because the spine made its mobility more difficult. I could go on with dozens and dozens of examples, but the final one I use is a leopard gecko that I really loved. A lot of people ask, do you regret getting rid of certain animals? This was my favorite gecko, but I don't regret getting rid of it because I just did not have the time to dedicate to it. This gecko was kept with 3 others in a 5-gallon. Yeah, that's correct. I didn't say that wrong. 4 leopard geckos, 4 adults in a 5-gallon. That is the size of potato, my enclosure. It's about this big. So they are likely literally on top of each other. Leopard geckos, they can be territorial, they can be uncomfortable with other animals, and this one was basically the victim of getting bullied. It was the unwanted female, so the male basically targeted her and would bite her and attack her, and the owner didn't do anything about it. Someone else got them from this owner, they then rehomed them to me, and then I rehomed them out to other people, just separated them all, distributed them all. However, the female was so beat up that all of her toes were a mixture of being bitten off and having so much stuck shed that they popped off, because another issue with lots of stuck shed buildup is it can cut off circulation and completely kill a part, like a limb on the animal. So yeah, her toes were completely gone, meaning she had no claws, and when she walked, she would just slide around. Like literally, she'd climb up on my leg, because I would just like hang out with her, kind of play with her, whatever, and she'd climb up my leg, and she would just instantly slide back down. So this is another example. There could be nothing that she has to climb to get to. Even the bowl, she can't grip onto it. It has to be as shallow as possible. And because she doesn't have claws, and because she was just not very mobile overall, she needed help every time she started shedding. Same case with a metabolic bone disease example of a leopard gecko. There's actually a video on this gecko if you want to check it out. He couldn't shed at all, so you had to help him every single time. But the reason I bring up all these examples is because a lot of you out there are going to have an abnormal animal, and you're going to have to do something different for it. It might feel wrong, you might feel guilty for not following the standard, and if you post about it online or wherever, if people give their feedback and they're like, that's not how you're supposed to care for this animal. If you realize that this is the healthiest way to care for the animal, if you are aware of what an animal, like say a leopard gecko, if you know what its weight's supposed to be, if you know what the signs of stress are, which are pretty simple, you can find them online, and if you know that all is well, make sure you listen to the feedback, but be aware that it's perfectly fine to ignore that feedback or just simply not follow it at all. Actually, another example, Shadow, my black rat snake. Normally rat snakes are cared very similarly. I said it, similarly. I normally have trouble with, I messed it up. I said the word right and then I messed up what I was saying after the word. Anyway, rat snakes are very similar to corn snake care, and so I would always give Shadow a hotspot of about 80 to 85 degrees. Most corns seem to like 85 when I get them in, same with rats. However, Shadow would always avoid it. No matter what the setup was like, she would refuse to go on the hot side of about 80 degrees. She'd always stick to the side that was in the low 70s. And no matter what I did, I switched up the hides. Maybe it's the hide, maybe it's the, I mean, that's about it. There's not much I can change. And she would not go over there. So I eventually just unplugged the heat mat. It was on a thermostat and everything. And instantly she was on that side. I then plugged it back in. She leaves immediately. So after months of playing around with this, she just for some reason really prefers much cooler temperatures in the high 60s to low 70s. She's never had digestion issues. She's never gone off feed, nothing. She just seems to prefer 10 to 15 degrees cooler than any other rat snake I've cared for. So just a weird quirk. I don't really understand that one, but that's an example. So yeah, that's it. Why Stan's enclosure is so boring? Because I think I've refined it to what he likes. I wouldn't do this for most spirities, but it's what I'll continue to do. And let me know if your animal has any weird quirks, if you have to do any different things in the what am I trying to ask? Any different husbandry thing? You know what I'm trying to ask. So leave a comment if you so desire. That'll be it. Check out the playlist with everything Stan has got. And that's it. I'm Alex. Thanks for watching.